Okay, here we are with another backing track that is going to strengthen my Lydian theory a little bit more, I hope. We discussed earlier that any major or major 7 chord that's outside the key will take the Lydian scale. Now that's all very well, but if you come across a chord that you're not particularly familiar with, and then you've got to chase the Lydian scale all over the neck, that can be very difficult, especially if they're passing by quite quickly. So I've put together this backing track with some major 7 chords, and it's 4 bars on each, apart from the last one, which is 3 bars, and then a bar of E7. And I'll just go through them quickly for you. The first one is A major 7 for 4 bars, then to C major 7 for 4 bars, then to E flat major 7 for 4 bars, up to F major 7 for 3 bars, and then the last bar of the sequence, E7. Now, because the first chord being A major 7, imagine until you move away from that chord, as far as your ear and theory is concerned, you are actually in the key of A until the second chord comes along. And so on the first chord you can use major or Lydian, but Lydian for the rest of the chords is definitely the best choice. So let me try and give you my way of locating scales, and I actually use this method for locating most scales. What we do is we look at this first chord, okay, and I'm not going to be really thinking sort of Lydian in this position. The way I think of it is I look for the major pentatonic, okay, and that will be my shell to build the scale. So the pentatonic shape that most people seem to be au fait with is this one, which is what we call the minor pentatonic shape, or most people would identify as being the minor pentatonic shape, especially if the root is at the bottom. But for those of you who don't know, if you actually change the root, okay, to the second note of the scale, it now becomes C major pentatonic, okay? So if you're playing this pentatonic and the emphasis is on A, it's A minor pentatonic. If we change the emphasis to C and make that the root, you can hear now that's got a major sound. Same shape, but the emphasis changes it from minor pentatonic to major pentatonic. Okay, so how's that going to help us? Well, what we need to do is find a major pentatonic first and foremost as our shell to build the major or Lydian scale. And the way we do that is by counting up 6 from the major scale of the root of the chord, and that will give us the relative minor. So bear with me. I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but just bear with me. So let's look at the first chord, A major 7. So we count up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now we go to the familiar pentatonic of that note, which will be F sharp minor. Okay, and that will be starting down here on the 2nd fret. Okay, so there we have F sharp minor pentatonic, but if we actually change the emphasis of that scale, or the root of that scale, to an A, it now becomes A major pentatonic. And that actually gives us 5 of the notes that we need to build the scale. And there's only 7 notes in the scale, so that means we've only got to find 2 more. So a major scale has a natural fourth. So if we go up from the A, count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and also both Lydian and major have a natural 9, which is a tone above the root, or you can count up 9 if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You'll find it's a B. So to get a major scale, we just add a natural fourth and a 9 or a 2, whichever way you want to look at it, to our pentatonic, and we have the major scale. Now for the rest of the chords, we're going to use Lydian. And a Lydian's got a sharp 4, but it's got a natural 9 or a natural 2, whichever way you want to look at it. And so basically we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, move that up. Now we've got a Lydian. Now, some of you may recognise that that looks like a very familiar shape that's used in rock playing quite a lot, which is the Dorian type shape. And you'd be quite right to recognise that. So if you know those Dorian shapes, you can also use those, but just realising that it's not actually F sharp Dorian you're playing, it's a Lydian, okay? Because you're just putting that emphasis note, you're just using a different note for the main emphasis. Okay, so let's just go to the second chord, do the same theory and hopefully it will still work. So the second chord is going to be C major 7. So we count up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we find that we get an A. We go to A minor pentatonic, change the root note or the emphasis note to the second note of the scale. Okay, now we have C major pentatonic. To get Lydian, we add a sharp 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, sharpen it. And also we add the natural 2 or natural 9, so now we have the whole scale. And you may also notice this is looking very much like an A Dorian shape. But just using that C as an emphasis. Now, if you know these shapes quite well, all of a sudden, you've got the Lydian for all the chords, all over the neck. A lot easier than keep kind of shoot round trying to find all the shapes. So, I'll just give you a quick overview of which major pentatonic shapes are going to work for each chord. Okay, for A major 7, we're going to be using the F sharp minor pentatonic shape. We're going to be adding that sharp 4 for Lydian and the natural 4 for major and the natural 2. And don't forget the emphasis is now going to be A. And that's easy to remember because we know it's an A chord we're playing on. Okay, for the second chord being C major, it's going to be the A minor pentatonic shape with the emphasis on C, adding that sharp 4th and that natural 2 or 9. Next chord is going to be E flat major 7, counting up 6. You can see that C minor pentatonic. Putting that emphasis on E flat, adding the sharp 4 and the natural 2. And finally, F major 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's our relative minor, which is going to be D minor pentatonic. But we change the emphasis to make it into F major pentatonic. Add that sharp 4 and that natural 2. Okay, and you'll probably notice it's very similar or exactly the same as a D Dorian shape. Now this is the system I use to locate most of the modes. What I tend to use is the Dorian shape that I've become very familiar with by playing rock and blues, and then all I do is just change whichever note, whichever note I want to be the emphasis will be the mode. So, for example, if I'm playing in D Dorian shape, if I want to play E Phrygian, which is a mode from the parent scale of both modes, C major, what I do is I just think as E as my root. And if I play Dorian here, you can see that's got that Phrygian sound, but I'm just using the shapes I know and just recognising which is the root note. Okay, so let's have a little demo with the backing track now, and I'll be using all these scales, and hopefully you'll be able to hear that I can move quite smoothly between them. And as I said before, it's going to be probably major, some Lydian, but major on the first chord, being the A major 7, and the rest is going to be Lydian off the root of the following chords. And then the E7 at the end, I can play E mixer Lydian, but to be honest, I'll probably just hit one chord tone over it to give the solo a sense of rest before it starts again. Okay, so what you heard me do there was play a solo over all the chords, major mostly on the A, but Lydian on the rest of the chords. And in the early stages of the solo, I stuck to position 1 of the relative minor. If you remember when we counted up, I stuck to position 1 each time round so that you could see the system that I use to locate the scales. And as the solo progressed, I started to use other positions, which obviously you can get into more as you go along. But using that position 1 of the relative minor of each chord, first of all, adding that sharp 4 and that natural 2 is a really, really good way of being able to visualize the positions a bit easier.